Hello everyone. Welcome to the first handstand session with Urban Climb. Hope you guys are all well and feeling really strong. We're going to go through a bunch of drills today that will start your journey towards handstanding. If you are already experienced with handstanding, these drills are still going to be really effective for you to potentially hone in on some of the skills that you need to potentially improve on your handstanding. So it will be really good to go through the progression right from the start and then follow me through the next series that we will be developing with Urban in the next couple months, and then we will be providing that to you guys as well. So for the start, we're gonna find ourselves on a mat and begin to center ourselves. We need to calm our breathing down and be able to center ourselves, get ourselves ready to go through this practice. My handstand background is from yoga, and I always start the class with a little bit of centering, sitting down on the mat, taking a couple of deep inhales and exhales, and making sure that I'm ready to get into the practice, and also creating an intention for myself to be able to do what I want to do and I love doing in the best, most effective way possible. So close your eyes, rest your hands on your knees, take a couple of deep inhales and exhales. And when you're ready, begin to slowly warm your shoulders up. So big rotations with your shoulders and focusing on keeping the shoulders relaxed. So as you notice, when we lift the shoulders up, the shoulders are not fully lifting up to the ears, but we are just keeping the shoulders nice and relaxed when we're creating rotations through the shoulders. And also do the backward motion as well. And the shoulders start warming up. Do a gentle twist towards your right side, keeping the spine nice and tall. Twist to the left. Come back to the center, bring your arms all the way up. Deep inhale, exhale. Bring the right hand down to the mat, left arm over the head. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, left arm down, right arm over. Inhale, come back up. Exhale, bring the right arm under the left arm, palms of the hands together. So from here, I'm really focusing on broadening through the back of my shoulders. Pressing the elbows away from my body, pressing the hands away from my face, and lifting the elbows up. Trying to broaden through the back of my shoulders as much as I can, and at the same time trying to keep the shoulders away from you. So you don't want to get into that crunch position, but at the same time you want to be as broad as you can get behind your back. Lift the elbows up. Exhale. Inhale, open arms. Exhale, change sides. Again, as you go through your stretches again, feel free to close your eyes, feel free to find your intention, feel free to tap into the focus that you want to inhale, you want to harvest more throughout your training. Broaden through the back of the shoulders, notice the differences between each side of the body. Lift the elbows up. Inhale, open arms. Exhale, come forward. So one of the fundamentals of your handstands are your wrists. So you want to make sure your wrists are nice and healthy, and also paying attention to your elbows and to your shoulders are the key for your handstanding, because that's what creates the base of your handstand. When you start your handstanding, you want to make sure your foundation is right so that the rest of the handstand looks good. Often we see with people that don't have good handstand form, it's because they've got really tight shoulders, they've got really tight pecs that doesn't allow them to actually open up sufficiently. So we want to make sure we want to start from the scratch and go through each one of these elements and set ourselves a standard to work towards. And as we go through the progress, making sure that we improve on all of these components. So stack the hands under your shoulders, and as I stack my hands under my shoulders, I keep the thumb in and try to broaden my fingers as much as I can. The fingers are not exploding, the webbings are not falling apart from each other, but at the same time they're not close together. So they're nicely wide and under my shoulders. And the elbows are stacked over the wrist. So this is your first point of tapping and checking with yourself to see how your alignment is. You need to make sure that the weight is distributed equally between both hands. So as you pay attention to the weight distribution against your wrist, make sure that the inside of the wrist is pressing down as much as the outside of the wrist is pressing down. And also making sure that the index finger and the pinky are all in touch with the mat. Down this track, you will notice that there are different styles of hand balancing, where some hand balances really enjoy lifting the inside of the wrist up, but a lot of hand balances recommend you putting the weight on the inside of the hand because that's where the weight bearing is more optimal for your wrist. So for today's class, I want to encourage you guys to press down on the inside of your hands and making sure that the weight is distributed towards the inside of your wrist rather than the outside of the wrist, and pressing down equally on all four corners of your hand. Slowly bring the shoulders forward, stretch the back of your forearms, come back to the center, come forward, come back to the center, come forward, come back to the center. Now fingers facing away from each other, base of the wrist parallel to each other, and we go left and right. Do the same motion again. We are trying to keep the elbows nice and straight throughout this whole process. Shoulders are starting to warm up, the base of the wrist is starting to get a little bit more of the conditioning. And then fingers facing the body, base of the wrist parallel to the short edge of the mat. If you can do that with both hands, do that with both hands. If not, you can keep one hand facing forward, one hand facing the body, and then slowly sitting back down. And you notice that this stretch becomes a lot more intense towards the stretch in the front of your forearms. With this one, again, I want to encourage you guys to think about turning the arms as open as you can get. And that is again codependent on how flexible you are and how much range of motion you got in your shoulders. So if you notice that again, you can't really turn the hands out of it, that means that you've got really tight pecs that don't allow that external rotation of the shoulders. So keep the hands nice and wide, slowly sit back on that. If you're doing it with both hands, the same process, to slowly sit back. If you're doing one hand at a time, make sure you change hands, go towards the other hand. Come back to the center. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of exercises with our elbows as well. So create this awareness of how your elbows move and how much control you got around the movement of your elbows. That again tells me, and that tells yourself how much mobility you got in your wrist, forearms, and your shoulders. So inside of the elbows facing each other. So on the outside, inside of the elbows facing each other. And as we do that, we're slowly pressing the ground away, slowly coming forward, coming back. This time, bring the inside of the elbows facing forward, as far forward as you can get. Then come forward. Now come back. As you come back, bring the inside of the elbows facing together. As you come forward, inside of the elbows facing forward. So do that drill a bunch of times in your own time. If you notice any limitation in that area, you need to really look into bringing more mobility and range of motion towards your elbows and finding out what is that is stopping you. Is that because your biceps are really tight? Is that because your triceps are stopping you? Or is that because your forearm muscles are really tight? Which is the situation with a lot of climbers, really strong forearms. So we do the elbows as well. We come back, we sit down. So after we put the weight on the wrist, one of the key things is that we need to lots of pressure on the wrist. We need to find a way to decompress the wrist and create that opening back in the wrist. One of the things that I always love doing for my own handstand arm balancing training is I find the bone, the jittery bone that's in the outside of your wrist. You find that and then you place your index finger between that and the base of the wrist. And as we do that, I create a C shape with my wrist, with my thumb and the index finger, and I squeeze the base of that section. And that slowly decompresses the wrist that has been under pressure. So you do that with your fist, slightly turned in. You're not really squeezing the hell out of it. You're just squeezing just slightly. And then that's where you get that decompression in your wrist. That again tells me how my wrist is feeling. If I'm getting that nice mobility and that nice range of motion in my wrist, that's telling me that the wrist is nice and happy. And you see that with a lot of wrist injuries, that there's that heavy tightness in the base of the wrist, and as you squeeze it, you don't really get any movement in your wrist. And that's again another thing that you need to be conscious about. Understanding of where there are issues across our body is one of the key things that help us improve in any skill development that one is developed down the track and makes it a lot more sustainable. So we decompress the wrist, do a little bit of rotation, making sure everything is nice and happy. Do that with the left hand as well. Come back forward. Now we want to stretch the shoulders a little bit. Stack the hips over your knees, untuck your toes, bring the hands forward. There are two types of stretches here. One of them is a classic yoga stretch where we lift the back of the bum up, tailbone goes up towards the ceiling, and we send the chest towards the mat. As we do that, we slide the hands forward, try to keep the hips stacked over our knees. And that's a stretch where you get a lot on your lumbar spine, you get a lot of a stretch towards the under your armpits, and you get a lot of a stretch towards your thoracic. And I'm constantly looking towards my hands, trying to relax the back of my neck, so not too much activation of the trapeze. and I come back up. So that stretch is really good for getting the whole of the back nice and stretched up. But one key element where in handstanding that we talk about is the ability to have really nice straight shoulders, which is more focused towards stretching your latissimus dorsi and the muscles all under your armpits. So another thing that would allow us to focus more specifically on that is to lock in your lower back and lock in your middle spine, and then focus more on stretching under your armpits. To do that, we create this concept of external rotation of the shoulders. So when we got the hands parallel together, shoulders are reaching up, fingers are reaching towards the ceiling, and at this one I slightly lengthen through my tailbone. If I bring the back of the hands together, shoulders come towards my ears, and it's create that internal rotation of the shoulders. And when I talk about external rotation of the shoulders, that's when the pinkies come towards each other, pressing the thumb away, and you get this activation of your latissimus dorsi under your armpits. That's what hugs everything in towards the center line of the body. So I want to create the same sensation as I go towards the stretching under my armpits. I bring the hands forward, ground down through the base of the hands, straight away, lengthen through my tailbone, keep the lower back active, and I bring my armpits slowly towards the ground. So you notice that this is not stretch, the bum is not up. This one, the length exists towards your tailbone. The middle back is active, but the upper shoulders is what is inactive, and you're slowly pressing under the armpits towards the mat. So you should be getting that sensation of the straight all the way from the top of your bicep, all the way towards the base of your lats that go all the way down. What you want to avoid is getting the stretch on the inside of your joint. You don't want to get that pain in the inside of the joint. Again, if you're getting that pain inside the joint, you need to get a little bit more activation towards the shoulder, get your rotator cuffs looked at, make sure that they're strong enough as you're getting your external rotation of the shoulder, and then work towards the stretching again. So these are some of the conditioning things. The next thing we want to do is we want to lie down on the ground, and we want to create an L shape with the elbows. And as we go through that shape, I want to slowly, so I'm going to go slowly lie down on the ground. So as you can see, my left shoulder is in line with my left elbow, left hand is flat down on the ground, and I lie down on the ground and slowly bring the back leg behind me. And I keep focusing on pressing the front of my left shoulder down towards the mat. Stay in that position for 3-4 breaths. Come back down, go towards the other side, right elbow, right hand, go around that, slowly open the front of the pickup, come back down, bring the hands under your shoulders, sit back on the heels again. So as we go through this training today, we're going to show these drills maybe once or twice, but I want you to add this to your portfolio of training. So as we go through each one of these drills, these are not the drills that would stay with you for only one time. You don't do that one time in a class, you constantly come back into them. As we go through different drills, we come back to these drills, do a little bit more stretching on the shoulders, a little bit more shoulder opening, and then you're creating back that foundation that you want for your handstand. So before we get up to your handstanding, there's a bit of conditioning that we need to do to make sure that the body is nice and warm and we're ready to get upside down. So if the third or fourth element of your handstanding is that you created that nice beautiful foundation, your wrist is there, your shoulders, elbows, everything is nice and ready. Now we need to start thinking about what the next element is. So when you're upside down, your core is the next element, so you need to have an active core. So when we are standing up and we're going towards our handstand, if I've got a wobbly body, staying in that position and maintaining that tightness through the angle is going to be very difficult, because every joint in the body is doing whatever it wants to do. And if I am my wrist and my shoulder, I'm trying to control everything that's wobbly, it's going to be impossible. Imagine holding a belt or holding a piece of rope and trying to balance it. It's going to be really impossible to do. But if you've got a stick, you can balance this stick quite easily. You can hold the base of this stick, create that balancing action, and it becomes a lot more easier to hold. So with handstand, it's the same concept as well. If we create a body that has got really nice tension throughout it, then all I have to do with my handstand is balance very slightly with the base of my fingers and my wrist. and making sure that the rest of the body is nice locked in into place. So the goal of creating a nice and strong core is creating that body tension across the body, wherein whenever you want to get into your handstand, all you have to do is to find that sense of balance through the base of your handstand. So we need to create that tension throughout the body and then translate that into your handstand. The good thing is that strong core translates into a lot of other exercises. Climbing requires that body tension. So when you've got that ability developed through your handstanding, it really helps with your climbing and with other activities that you want to do. So we're going to start with this concept of hollow body. With hollow body, we want to create a nice long torso throughout the center of the body, but also we want to create that activation through the center of the core. So lie down on the ground, rest the arms by your side, draw the knees in the chest, and press your lower back down on the mat. And as you're pressing your lower back down on the mat, slowly lift the shoulders up. So as you see, my lower back is still pressing down on the mat. And now I want to slowly go towards the handstand shape. So go up, slowly lengthen my legs up towards the ceiling. And as I do that, the lower back is still pressing down on the mat. Then I slowly lower one leg down towards the mat. The lower back is still pressing down on the mat. Bring it back up. Lower the left leg down towards the mat. Bring it back up. Lower back is still touching down on the mat. Another thing I'm going to do is slowly let the knee go beyond my hips. Tap your toes down on the mat. Again, the lower back is still pressing down on the mat. Bring the knees back in the chest. And if you can, go one leg a little bit further with the knee going straight forward. Come back. And you still add to these elements nice and slowly until you can go fully straight in with the legs. Again, when I'm in that position, my lower back is still pressing down on the mat and I'm getting that full hollow body position, activation. So come back down, rest your core up. And as we bring the core down, bring the feet down to the mat, slowly bring the heels towards your butt, lift the front of the hips up. Now I'm walking towards the stretching the front of my hips, hip flexors, getting that rectus abdominis activation that we just did before, getting a little bit of a stretch through that muscle. And also as we do that, we get a little bit more opening through the front of the body. Come back down to the mat. Again, we want to work towards that hollow body position more. This time, if you're getting comfortable with that position, bring the arms across the body. Stay in that position. Find that stability through this. And you notice that when you go through these difficult positions, you are going to start losing your breath. And it's really key to start breathing into these difficult positions. Stay there as long as you can. Come back down to the mat. Again, lift the front of the hips up. And then come back down to the mat. So what I normally recommend to people that are working towards a handstand is to be able to hold their hollow body position for up to a minute at least. So start with about 30 seconds, time yourself in that position, and then slowly build up on top of that. And timing is a very effective way of motivating yourself to improve and also monitoring your progress through that process. So it's really important to set yourself a certain goal and then slowly build up on top of that to reach to the next level that you want to develop. So lots of the strength development studies that have been done shows that sticking to a certain increment for a long period of time, up to 4 weeks to 6 weeks, is very effective in terms of creating that adaptation through creating that neural adaptation across your body, and then from that have a bit of a higher increment of a jump of length and then go to the next level. So what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say if you go with 30-second hollow body hold and get really comfortable with it, hold it for about 6 weeks and do that a couple of times throughout your handstand training session, then after about 6 weeks, make that 30-second 1 minute and then hold that 1 minute for another 6 weeks and then come back into it, add another 30-second on top of that. So chunks of increments, maintain for a longer period of time, another chunk of increment, maintain for a longer period of time. Rather than saying, I'm going to hold it for 30 seconds today, 32 seconds tomorrow, 33 seconds the day after. It's a lot more effective to add chunks, but then hold that period for a longer period of time. So similar to your core adaptations, maintain that position and then add to it. Next thing we're going to do is your plank hold. We're going to stack the shoulders over your wrist. From there, I recommend untucking your toes because that's the position you're going to be in your handstand. Shoulders are stacked over your heels. And then if you look, my heels, my hips, and my shoulders are in one line. So you don't want to be high up there, and you don't want to be sinking through the base of your core. You want to maintain that activation of the core that you do in your hollow body position. So this is the exact shape of the hollow body position, but upside down. And the shoulders are stacked over the wrist, and I'm gazing between the pointer of between both of my thumbs. Same thing, we're going to do side plank. Again, when we go towards side plank position, you got the option of bringing the left leg forward, stacking it makes it a lot easier, or bringing the left ankle, stack it over the right ankle, flexing both feet. Gaze comes down towards the hand. I'm looking basically between my thumb and the index finger, and the left hand is along my right arm. Core is active. Again, I don't want to sink through the base of the hips. I want to make sure that I'm active there. Option to lift the left leg up as well. Again, same thing, walk towards holding it for about 30 seconds, up to a minute, and then change sides. Go left hand side as well. Go back up. Again, from back, you don't see the butt going back. You're seeing that lengthening of the tailbone. You see my heel, my butt, and my shoulder are in one line, and the arms are stacked. Again, another key problem I see with people is that the top arm goes back too far. Stack the arms on top of each other. Come back down. Lower down on the ground. Untuck your toes. Slowly lift the front of the hips up. Walk towards opening the front of the body a little bit, pressing down on the top of your toes. Core is nice and active, so feel free to open the front of the body up. Keep thinking about drawing the chin towards the chest, but as you do that, lengthen towards the back of the shoulders, shoulders away from the ears, reach up to the crown of the head. Pull and more, stay that again for 3-4 breaths. And then after you've done that, make your way into a child pose. Arms reaching in front of you. Forehead resting down on the mat, sending the hips towards the heels. And then come back up. So that creates, for this session, that's a really good amount of warm-up we do for our handstands. The wrist is warm-up, the shoulders is warm-up, and the legs are warm-up. So what we're going to do next, we're going to get against the wall and start doing our handstand drills. So, a key point of safety is that when we are upside down, our brain doesn't work the way it works when we are standing on our feet. Standing on our feet, it takes us years to learn what the proprioception is around us, how everything works, how everything is around us. So we have that understanding of, oh, there's wall behind me, there is wall on my right hand side, there is an object behind me. So be very careful before getting upside down. Make sure that you're aware of all the objects around you. So I see there's a speaker here, there's an iPad, and all that sort of stuff. So I want to make sure that I've got that understanding, and I want to be respectful of the space around me. The first rule we're going to do with our handstand is that we're going to bring the hands under our shoulders. Against, as you can see, the distance of the hands are between my shoulders. I see the tendency for people to be too wide with their handstands. I highly recommend having the hands stacked under your shoulders, and even thread towards having them narrower than you think you need to be. And the key point for that is structurally, anything that's straight and goes straight down toward the ground, the weight transfer becomes a lot easier. If you've got an angle there, that means that the weight has to go towards the base of the wrist. That means that it gets multiplied by the angle of the wrist. So being an engineer, I care a lot about finding that alignment very perfectly. So I want to make sure that the hands are stacked straight under my shoulders, and that's where the ultimate width is. From the foundation again, I learned handstanding by having these two fingers parallel. That means that if I keep the fingers nice and equally open, the middle finger tends at about 15 degrees outside. But again, I keep this box in the middle of the shoulders. So the index fingers and my shoulders and everything creates a box. Your thumb, what it does is that there are again different schools of thinking with your thumb. Some people use your thumb specifically in their hand balancing. It's a little bit less efficient because the muscle in the thumb has to be activated through the base of your forearm, and it makes your handstand a little bit inefficient. But if you can keep the base of the thumbs closer back to your hand and have these fingers activated, that makes it a lot easier for you down the track to go more towards endurance, because less muscle gets used basically towards the base of towards handstanding. So hands are stacked under your shoulders. Bring the feet up the wall. First drill we're going to do is that I'm going to keep my toes on the wall and I try to create that hollow body shape that we created on the ground on the wall. So ears are touching the side of my arms and I'm pressing the ground away through active shoulders. So I'm not sinking through the base of my shoulders. This feels horrible. But I keep wanting to push through the base of the shoulders and create that activation of the shoulders. Thumbs are in towards the base of the hands. Toes are untucked. Again, I don't want to see this. I want to make sure that the legs are staying nice and active. The top of the toes are, the back of the base of the toes are on the wall. And again, lengthening through the tailbone. So a typical thing that you would see is this. I want to turn that towards this. And that's basically sending your tailbone in towards your heels. Pressing the ground away, staying active through the shoulders. Shoulders nice and open. Stay there for again about 30 seconds. Build up on that time frame that you can stay against the wall. And then when you're ready, come back down to the ground. Sit back on the ground. Take your breath back. Relax the wrist. If you notice that when I get upside down, I tend to be able to comfortably speak, and I think that is the reason for that, is that I've learned to breathe a lot into handstanding. A lot of people, as soon as they come back down from a handstand, they tend you get super worried about them, and that means that they're holding their breath and they're not getting comfortable in that breathing. So what I want you to think about is the concept of, as soon as you get upside down, force yourself to breathe. And one of the best ways to breathe is by speaking, by being able to say your name, being able to talk to someone. So if you're practicing with someone, if you're at home, talk to your dog, talk to the cat, and whatever you do, just make sure that you're constantly encouraging yourself to breathe and be able to be open in that situation. So really key thing with that first drill we did is lengthening through your tailbone. So if someone was looking at you from behind, your butt basically disappears because you lengthen through your tailbone, you're creating that activation, and your legs are nice and solid. Keep practicing that with yourself. So as you're sitting down, standing on your knees or standing on your legs, whatever way you do, keep thinking about how you can maintain that length through your legs. But as you do that, lengthen your tailbone and get that long, nice back, which if someone looks at you from behind or from the side, they see that flatness right through the base of your back. So back to the first rule again. So either hold that position, or if you're more comfortable, get the hands a little bit closer towards the wall. Ideally, you want to get as far close as you can get towards the wall, where you should be able to actually even kiss the wall. And then when you find that nice length, then look towards your hands through your eyebrows. Find that position and stay in that position until you're comfortable that your toes float away from the wall. And you come back towards the wall. And again, I'm not kicking the wall. My legs have got no activation in them. Like what we are standing, when we want to go forward and backwards, we only use the base of our wrist to go away from the wall and then come back to the wall. Another key thing here is that I want to make sure the chest is not collapsing towards the wall. As soon as the chest collapses towards the wall, that means that you lost the activation of the core. Chest off the wall, armpits towards the wall. Top of the toes on the wall, resting, finding that nice alignment, and then slowly float away from the wall. Come back down, walk the hands forward. Bring your feet down to the mat. Again, sit back down, take a couple breaths, massage your wrists, make sure everything is happy. If your wrists and your forearms are starting to get cooked, bring the forearm down on the mat, bring your knee, dig the knee into that forearm, slowly massage the forearm. If you're more hardcore than that and you need a little bit more, bring the shin into the base of the forearm and give that a little bit of a deeper massage. Just stay there, open it up, go towards the other hand. And these are really good things to recondition your forearm, recondition your shoulders, everything nice and happy, get into the next drill. Another key thing that you do between your handstand drills is you bring the stretches back into that situation. So I do one drill there, and then come back on the ground, do a little bit of a forearm rest. Rest for about 1.5 minutes, up to 2 minutes, depending as to how hard I work. Then I get into the next drill. So it's sort of, you give yourself enough time, but not too much time that you cool yourself down. There's a certain period of time, there's that golden amount of rest. So it's always super important to have your phone handy, have your timer in, make sure you know how much time you're resting in that position. All right, next drill we're gonna do. So you got the first two drills down path. You're solid against the wall, you're maintaining that beautiful line, you video yourself, you notice that your shoulders are nice and open. By open, I mean, if this is a closed shoulder, and if this is a full open shoulder, I want to make sure that I want to stack the arms, be able to stack the arms while my ribcage is not flaring out. So if my ribcage comes in, my shoulders are still standing in that position. This is a closed shoulder, this is a closed shoulder, this is a nice open shoulder. This is a bad shoulder, that means that my ribcage is tight, not allowing my shoulders to open up. Then I sink the shoulder in and press the arms back, that becomes a nice open shoulder. So really keep thinking about that concept, video yourself from the side, and then come back into the same situation of, hey, my shoulders are tight, maybe I need to work towards that, and then come back into that situation. So you've done these drills, you're comfortable with that, then this time you stay about 1.5 hand distance away from the wall. Stack the shoulders over your wrist. And this is where we're starting kicking up towards the wall. Bring one foot forward. And this is the foot, the left foot that's coming forward in this situation is what is driving the handstand upwards. The top leg is a leg that's creating the torque. So again, in engineering, we're creating that leverage action of sending the top leg up. And as you notice, as I do that position, my leg goes up and down and straight. So the first drill I want you to think about is that exact drill that I just did. Hands under your shoulders, foot as close as I can get to my hands. That foot can be bent, doesn't need to be straight. Keep it straight if you can. And the back leg goes up and down straight. And that basically encourages you to kick up with that leg straight. And then when you're ready and you got that concept solid, put that left foot down, right foot up, and bring the legs up towards them. Again, as you notice that as I go up, I don't go up like that because that pushes me away from the wall. I want to make sure that I go up straight. And down the track, when you go towards your handstanding, you want to make sure that the core is engaged, the legs are engaged, so when you go up towards the wall, you got that balancing action against solid, like that stick that we talked about before. So hands are stacked under your shoulders, legs are on the wall. Again, make sure that the body is not sinking back, the ribcage is not flaring forward. That's a complete different pose. We want to make sure that the core is active, and we are like a stick. We are like a broom leaning against the wall. So if someone looks at you from the side, it just looks like you're a broom, a piece of a stick against the wall. Nice and solid, shoulders, head between the eyelids, and then bringing one leg forward. Getting that sensation, making sure that the weight is stacked rightly over the wrist. I'm looking towards my hands the whole time. I see a lot of this in handstanding. Make sure the head stays nice and solid in the position it is. And if you're getting more comfortable with that position, slowly balance yourself. Bring one leg, bring the other leg forward. Ooh, come back to the wall. Leg forward, back to the wall. Change legs, bring the opposite leg forward. Back to the wall, one leg forward, back to the wall. And you notice that you're getting too cooked, you come back down to the ground, rest up. So as you notice that, I'll look upwards through the back of the shoulders. So when you look, when the shoulders are up and the head is forward, the shoulders are nice and open. The moment I lift the head up, the tendency is for the chest to open up, and what that does is that it inadvertently closes your shoulders. So your angle of the shoulder changes and your handstand becomes a closed handstand shape. When we talk about a nice straight handstand, that's where the back of the neck is nice and relaxed, your traps are nice and relaxed, and all you're doing is just softly looking up through your eyebrows towards your thumbs. And that's the way where you start getting that nice open shoulder. You're getting that nice relaxed back of the shoulders. So if you come back from a handstand, you notice that the back of the shoulders are getting tight, or your traps are getting nice and tight, then it means that you're working too much on the head. You're lifting too much on the back of your traps, and you need to massage them. To massage them, lengthen the left hand on the left side of the body, slowly fold the head to the right side. The whole time I'm thinking about drawing the shoulder down, go back to the left, right hand out. Head slowly forward, keep it little, keep just some gentle weight towards the back of the head. All right, back to the second drill. So we go back to the wall, hands about 1.5 distance away, and we practice kicking up towards the wall. About 10 tries. So I typically tell my students to work towards that entry, about 10 tries of each types of the entries you're working on. Today, all we're going to do is that kick up entry. So hands are resting down on the ground, foot up, bring the foot up on the wall, bring it back down, kick up, bring it back down, kick up. If you notice that your legs are going up bent, that means that you're doing it wrong. So make sure you video yourself or get someone to check on you, come back down. And then next time you went up, hold that position. Try to slowly bring one leg forward, bring the other leg forward. If you're comfortable, float one foot away, float the other foot away as well. And find that position. Make sure the core is nice and tight. Bring that legs back off the wall and slowly come back down to the ground. Work on your pike very frequently. Every time you come back down from the handstand, work on your forward fold. Start with the knees bent. Really get that chest nice and long along your thighs. Don't even worry about getting the hands down on the ground. Really think about the lengthening of your torso along the legs. Keeping the heels together, toes together, rest in that position. Keep the head relaxed. If you can get the hands resting down on the ground, do that. And then when you got that connection, then slowly lift the back of the hips up. Transfer more weight forward. Lift the back of the hips up more. Soften it. Lift the back of the hips up more. Soften it. Lift the back of the hips up more. Soften it. Come back down to the ground. And these are the drills we're going to do for the first handstand session. So we'll go back to the mat. So for the first session, the key thing we wanted to work on is that line of the body. So all I want you to think about is go back to your own practice and think about the base of your wrist, think about the weight distribution on your hands, think about the alignment of your elbows over the wrist, shoulder over the wrist, and also get on the ground and work on your hollow body position. And get that hollow body position dialed in, understand what your limitations are. And when I say dialed in, I don't want you to do the perfect hollow body position. I want you to find whatever hollow body position you're in, remembering the sequences we went through, and understand where is that you're at. And find that position and slowly develop a progression for yourself that you go from where you are to where you want to be. And give yourself time. Remember, handstand is not something that you learn by one session of training, by a week of training, 2 months of training. Handstand is, arm balancing is one of the hardest skills in acrobatics. And the reason for that is that body takes a long time to adapt to that situation. Your wrist needs to develop the strength, the shoulders need to develop the strength. And these are not necessarily just muscular strength. These are actual bone density that needs to be developed in parts of your wrist and the shoulders to be able to hold a position for a certain period of time. So give yourself time, set yourself measurable goals and meaningful goals that you want to work towards, and then build towards that. So first session goal was for us to understand that line of the body on the ground and against the wall, facing the wall and facing away from the wall. Drill that into your practice for the next week, and then we'll come back for another session later on. Thank you so much. Always remember, finish your session with some strength training. So all the core exercises we did at the start of the class, give yourself about 5 to 10 minutes and repeat those strength training exercises at the end of the session, and you're good to go. Enjoy.